Hello everybody, my name is Solus Convoy. I'm back again with a Legends review after a bit of a foray into MP. Today we're taking a look at Newage H14B Genie Shazaam, which is their version of Shattered Glass Thundercracker / Action Master Thundercracker. This figure is on loan to me from Quisis, who is a member in my Newage Discord server, which I can link in the description to this video. You can pick this figure up on Shazaam, which I will also link in the description of this video. Moving on to the box, pretty cool box. Has a reference to, I think, DC's Shazaam or Captain Marvel. Looks pretty cool. You know, some art with Makio on the back. Not a figure I loved, if I'm being quite honest. A lot of cool retooling, but the base mold is just not all that. This figure is quite dated, just a preface, so I'm going to try to be gentle. Unfortunately, it has a lot of flaws that result from being dated, and a lot of flaws that are just flaws. But let's get into it. So, taking a look at the robot mode, there's a lot of paint on this guy, and there's also a lot of bare plastic, so I'll explain. So this purple here is painted, this purple here is painted, this green is painted, and the gold on that head sculpt, which looks really nice, is painted. Unfortunately, the eyes are a bit hard to capture because of the shape of the head sculpt, but they do look really nice in there. They're painted a really nice red. It's just really hard to capture it on camera, and even in person it does look kind of dark because they're recessed in the back of the head, but the gold on the helmet is fantastic. The blue on the face is fantastic. This purple looks really nice. This purple is painted on the null rays. I'll talk about that later. This red is painted. It doesn't look super great. This green is painted here, but then these I think are solid plastic, and then the die-cast feet are painted, which is something to watch out for because I've heard of these chipping. Proportionally, it's okay. I think it doesn't really have like that immediate glaring, like a lot of proportional issues like a lot of early New Age figures do. It's pretty much fine proportionally. The major proportional issue I have is the thighs are way too short, which is also turns into being a dynamis and an articulation issue, because when your thighs are too short, you know, bending your knee is not really significant. The lower legs are way too long. I have this guy mistransformed from the stock instructions. I don't have these wing flaps folded in, but let's face it, without these folded out, he will constantly fall over, and I think it looks worse. So I like this better aesthetically, and it's more functionally pleasing, so I'm just going to treat this as the proper transformation because there's no really value here except filling this gap. If you want to fill that gap, you're free to. I don't think it's a correct idea. I think function and honestly form, because I like this better, is more important than a gap filler. And also the transformation to fill this is not elegant or pleasing in the slightest, which is something I'm going to talk about in the final thoughts. Let's move on to articulation, which is going to be a bit of a rough segment. So the head is on a really tight ball joint. Unfortunately, the back of the head is filled in, so he can't look up, which I think the Toon version, the renewal reissue-ish 1.5 version, the Toon head can look up, this can't, which is really disappointing on a flyer. That's the maximum range up you get, which is nothing. No down. You don't really get much side to side on the ball, but there is a swivel here for transformation, so you get a little bit of side to side. The shoulders are pretty rough. I mean, there's a ball joint that goes 90, and this is so annoying. The shoulder ball joint is tighter than this ball joint in the bicep, and it's also tighter than this screw right here. So it's really hard to like manipulate the shoulder without other things moving, but you do have a universal shoulder that gets you the full run. You have a 90-degree elbow, and then you have rotation at the bicep. Unfortunately, this is a ball joint for whatever godforsaken reason, and it constantly wants to do things like this. It just looks really rough. It's like David, but a million times worse. I mean V1 David, not the updated one with the double jointed elbows. So not great. You do have wrist swivel, which is too tight. The null rays can obviously rotate, but he can't do like the overarm null ray pose whatsoever. They're above the bicep swivel. You can only do it like this, and that doesn't look very good. Another thing I forgot to mention is that these chest flaps just flop like that. Mine are tight enough now, but they don't tab in. He has a waist swivel, which only goes this far and breaks a sculpt like the deformation space one. He has hip skirts, which go out like that. They don't really mean much if you don't have the, they go up to 90, the hips go up to 90, and you can get the other hip skirts out. And then he has an ab crunch, so theoretically you can get the hips up to here, which is pretty much the only impressive point of articulation this toy has. So you can do that. Unfortunately, like all Newage Seekers ever, I didn't tighten this one so I could show it on the review, but the ab crunch is pretty loose, and the hip ball joints are pretty loose. So I have to tighten those before I send these back to Quisis, who is nice enough to loan this to me. There's a thigh swivel that's weirdly loose and tight at different angles. So that's nice. 90-degree knee, which basically does nothing considering how short the thighs are. And then you have an ankle tilt, and you can't put the foot any more down. You can tilt it further down. That's really tight. I assume it's a combination of the paint and being two die-cast parts. Also, be very careful for this feet. There's a part of a transformation where you kind of have to like pull these up, and I see people have chipped the hell out of these. They're painted die-cast, so I would just watch out for that. So yeah, articulation is really bad compared to modern standards, but considering when this came out, I guess it's fine. The most infuriating part is by far this this thing. If it wasn't necessary for transformation, I would recommend just super gluing it in place, but it is absolutely necessary for transformation, and it is the bicep swivel technically, so you're just shit out of luck. It's not like David where you could actually super glue the bicep thing in place because it's only needed for the Magnus transformation. So, and also the wings can, like, you know, do that. So in terms of accessories, obviously he has the null rays, which are gray plastic and painted. They are pretty thin, so just be careful with these. You can also put a blast effect on the null rays, though I'm pretty worried about putting it on painted plastic, and they fall off super easily. I don't want to like push it because it's painted, so you kind of have to find that Goldilocks zone of where you're not pushing it and you're also not like, it's not falling off, and you can do that. But again, he can't do the null ray over the hand. I think he can hold his null rays though. Can he? Okay, no, he can't. Unless it's my copy. I don't know if I'm doing something. Oh no, he can't because the fists are too low and the peg is too short. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not one. He does not want to hold his null ray, and that thing falls off. So that's not great. You can replace the null rays with these, the usual, you know, bombs that he has in his jet mode in the cartoon. Doesn't look very good in bot mode, but they're for alternate mode mostly. I will do an accessory run up in alternate mode as well. He has 2 copies of the blast effects and 2 copies of these thruster effects, which tab into his feet. I almost did like the Bobby feet thing, which is not. I'm not going to do copyright infringement on my reviews. I don't know if he has that copy. He doesn't have that copyrighted. I'm just messing around. So you can do that, and you can fly, which is great because you do have the included flight stand, which has 3 points of articulation. So if you get him on the flight stand, he tabs in on the back right here. The flight stand is pretty cool. It's general. If it starts getting loose, you just have to like push it back in. So he can get on the flight stand and do flying things. And then for the rest of his accessories, we have open hand, right? We have a pair of these, which are the classic old school open hand sculpt, which looks ass in almost every other pose except a few. The new ones are much better. And he has a pointing finger, so he can point. Newage doesn't really use a sculpt anymore. I thought the sculpt was actually pretty decent. I don't know why they abandoned it, but whatever. So those are the hands, and his last accessory, besides the display base slash, you know, space bridge component, this can turn into a space bridge thing using these, and it also has a claw arm attachment, is his repainted Megatron blaster. I don't know if this is like supposed to be accurate to anything. I think it's just a random color scheme they chose to fit the plastic distribution, and it looks okay. It looks fine. Pretty decent accessory, I guess. And you could just headcanon as being something else for this character. So yeah, quick size comparison. I don't know, guys. I don't want to be negative about this figure because I know it is a iconic figure. I think a lot of people have a really high opinion of the Newage Seeker because of when it came out. I don't think back then there were a lot of really good Seeker toys that were both simple to transform, but I don't really enjoy this guy's transformation either, so maybe that's something else that I'm missing out on. But just a really quick size comparison since I am running behind schedule. Here he is with Cyberverse Legion class flak. And let me just start to zoom out. So there's flak, here is core, bomb burst, big ass arm cannon. So he's bigger than a core. Here he is next to Newage's depth charge, and if this is Cyclonus, and that's Starscream, which is their base molds in the cartoon, I think the scale is okay. And then that's a Chug Deluxe. So, you know, he's between a core and a deluxe for those of you who are Chug collectors. So, hope that helps. I'm gonna get him transformed and then we'll do final thoughts. Alternate mode, some quick size comparisons. So, he's a bit longer than Cyclonus in this mode. I think the more pertinent comparison would probably be he's about Chug Deluxe height in length, I guess. So let's clear everything else out and just take a look at the jet mode. So I think the jet mode looks pretty solid. You know, it's got, you know, the bombs you can put in here, you parts form them. It's got landing gear, though the way it's been done is a bit unconventional. I think you can tab in the Megatron gun here. I haven't figured out how, and I don't really care. The proportions in the jet mode are okay. They look like the Toon jet. It's not really a great F-15, but, you know, whatever. The underside is a transformer, that's for sure. You know, you have like the kibble from the thing, the head, the gaps, the fists, etc. The landing gear, again, this part folds in, and then for these, you have to... Oh, God, why is it so tight? You have to pull up these feet, do that. Yeah, you can't. There's no clearance to open and close the landing gear without... Okay. Don't know why that's so tight. So the landing gear can go in. I mean, it's okay. It's aggressively okay. If you want to, you can put in the null rays here. Or you can put them in where the bombs are. And of course, you can still, you know, do everything you did before with other parts in this mode. You know, the 3mm ports are obviously modular. You can use the blast effects on the null rays if you put the null rays under the wings like you did in bot mode, and then you can plug these in here. They don't plug in super well, but you know, and these are actually really sharp on these edges, and they've been poking my fingers the entire time I've been messing with them. You can also put him on the, there's a stand port right there, so you can put him on the stand using that hole, and then you can have him flying around. The stabilizers constantly want to fold in because these are very light hinges and they don't lock into place, so that's nice. Yeah, the jet mode's okay, man. It's as someone who cares a lot about planes, it's all right. It's not bad. It's not great either. It's not anything to write home about. I think the Magic Square jet mode might actually be more accurate to the proportions of the F-15. The nose on this is a bit too stubby, I think, and the, you know, whatever. I'm not gonna get into plane proportions. Nobody really cares. Final thoughts. I gotta mention things about the transformation. The transformation is not as elegant as you would think it is. It's not like Newage Prowl, which despite being super simple, clunky, and dinky in proportions, has a really fun and smooth transformation. That's not happening here. It's the fin transformation, which I just avoided by not transforming the fins, is actually painful to do. It's not fun at all in any way, shape, or form. It's super simple. It's just the clearances and the parts you have to move. It's just not fun. pulling out the chest assembly with the cockpit on some copies looks super easy. On my copy, it was an actual nightmare, and it's super hard to get leverage. You also don't want to pull on the chest pieces because, again, they're attached to those small hinges, and I've seen them break off on other copies, so don't pull on those. You have to, like, reach behind them and pull on the nose cone parts when it's in chest mode. So that I don't give it any points for the transformation being like particularly fun. I think there's way more. I was handling Newage Slag, who's also on loan to me from Crisis, and will be my next review, and that is a much more complex figure, but it's also a much more fun transformation and much smoother. None of its steps are this painful, even if it does have some steps that don't actually work. So not a fan of this, honestly. I think for its time it might have been fine. I think that, you know, while Newage Megatron obviously is most likely to get a 2.0 because Romulus means new engineering, which is a high chance for a Legends Class 2.0 as well, since they have it in a larger scale. I think this guy could use one. I know a lot of people don't agree with that. They're like, oh, well, we have all these Seekers, we bought them already. I mean, that's your prerogative, man. I mean, I know you probably have 6 copies of a Seeker. I don't buy more than 1 copy of a mold. And I do think that, you know, Newage could probably put out a better play informer in 2024. That's just my opinion. But yeah, in terms of recommendations, I mean, if you're desperate for a Legends Class Seeker that's G1 accurate, then this is your only option, because the Magic Square one is ass. The Iron Factory one is in G1 accurate, and also that one is also dated and has a lot of the same issues this does, at least in terms of articulation. So yeah, I mean, I can't really recommend it. I have nothing that I personally want to recommend this, but everyone else will recommend this to you if you say I need a Legends Class Seeker. I wouldn't personally. I would not spend $50 to $60 on this. I don't actually think it's a value issue either. It comes with a ton of accessories, like the blast effects, the thruster effects, the base, the display stand, and a lot of those you could probably use in other toys. So the actual value is almost there. Like I think if you can get this mold for $50, I think there is actually some value there. But no, I don't really recommend it personally. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't find it fun to pose. I didn't find it fun to mess around with, and I don't really think it's you know, it's aged very well. I'm not gonna say it's bad or it's garbage or whatever, just because it's very dated, and I'm very cognizant of that. But I don't think it's aged as, like, let's say, gracefully as, for example, Scaramanga. I handled Scaramanga a few months ago, and I thought their sound wave had aged a bit better, a lot better, actually. Especially in robot mode. Soundwave has aged a lot better. I know that the shortlist for New Age remakes is Megatron and Jazz. Jazz in terms of the one who needs the remake the most, and Megatron the one who's most likely to get one. But in my opinion, this guy should probably be number 3, alongside like Brawn. But I don't think Brawn is significant enough to get a remake anyways. And I prefer they do new stuff rather than just remake people. So yeah, I mean, if you like Seekers, I don't think this is a bad figure per Seeker means. I just think it's aggressively mediocre in 2024, and it's lost the, you know, the novelty or charm of being like a brand new item that it had back when it came out, I think half a decade ago. So yeah, that's it for me. I'm gonna be back next week with another figure that's on loan for me, which I mentioned, Shattered Glass Slag. So look forward to that. Thank you all for the continued support. You know, I'm not saying this is again a bad figure. I'm just saying that it's very dated, and to keep that in mind compared to, you know, modern product. It doesn't hold up at all. But if you don't mind the issues like the lack of articulation, the mediocre transformation, and the mediocre proportions, and the stuff like the weird bicep, then I mean, if you want it, go for it. I'm not here to tell you not to buy things. I just personally don't have anything. Again, personally, I would, like, if someone asked me, would you buy this yourself? I would say no. You know, that's my final consensus on it. I think it's an aggressively C-tier figure in the modern era. But that's it for me. Again, I went on a bit too long. But yeah, hope you all have a great one. Soulless Convoy, peace out.